Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. And today we're going to be looking at Trump's floor for the 2024 election and why he's almost guaranteed victory in the Electoral College. Hit the like button and subscribe if you want more content just like this. So, right now, this is the battleground map that I have for the election. My national average, which basically adjusts all of the national numbers by party, has Trump leading the national popular vote by roughly 2.8%, I believe it is. And so within a 5 point spread of that, so all the way to Trump plus 7.8, all the way down to, Harris plus 3.8 in the popular vote. These are all of the states that could effectively change their vote in that span of scenarios. That's kind of how I think about a battleground map, essentially. So that basically means that there is no universe where Texas, Florida, Ohio, or Iowa can go, Democrat, or Colorado, Illinois, or New York. New Jersey is a little bit iffy because if it's deep R plus 7.8 in the popular vote, then there's a slight chance that that may go Republican. Like, it depends, but for the sake of the video, I am going to leave it in the Democrat column. And right now, Donald Trump in the Sun Belt is performing very, very strong because of African Americans and Hispanic voters and young millennial voters and young Gen Z voters moving into his column. We can actually take a look at my national average for North Carolina. We see here that Donald Trump is leading the average in North Carolina by 5.5%. And we had Trump up in our poll with SoCal Strategies by about 4 points, believe it or not. So, I mean, that leans that into his column already. This is a state that he won before in 2020, by 1.3%, and he won it by 3.7% back in 2016. And I may expect him to win it by over 5 this time. I think that's definitely likely to see happen. And because of that, you're getting pretty interesting results. And we see that Donald Trump is already retaining his 2020 states. I honestly wouldn't even be concerned about North Carolina because a lot of the polling there is really bad right now. And I believe Trump will probably win the state by over 5 at the end of the day. I have it as like an 8 or 9 point win for Trump. Like, he's winning this fairly easily, especially if he's winning the popular vote by 2. He's more than likely going to end up winning the state fairly easily. Now, Georgia is another interesting state because my average also has Donald Trump winning with somewhat ease. I mean, he's up by 5.2% in my average. And what it is that we get all of the polling data and we essentially find the weighting of all the data by party. And then I reweigh the numbers essentially. And none of the factors have been that bad. Like, I haven't had to have weighed a poll with over a factor of 1.5 at all, which is a good thing because if not, then you're really skewing the data way too hard. But you do see here that we clearly have some samples that are a little bit iffy. And my target electorate in Georgia is actually going to be the same as 2020, just to see how that kind of shakes out. If it's more Republican than 2020, you should expect a larger victory in Georgia than 5.2%. But I mean, that already puts the state into the leaning Republican column, at least battleground wise. I mean, Georgia last time barely went for Trump or for Biden because of the Atlanta suburbs that like really, really skewed to the left. That really, really hurt, Trump there. But in 2016, he won the state fairly easily. And that's because he did a lot better in some of these suburban areas outside of Atlanta and kind of did better in some of these rural counties in Georgia. Funny enough, the entire map in Georgia, only one county flipped, which was Burke County. It actually flipped Republican, which was kind of interesting. It was just Atlanta really moved to the left that cycle. But you may see, places like Newton and Cobb possibly go Republican at this point right now. I mean, Harris, she may do better in like Fulton and DeKalb. Like, it's possible that that does happen, but the chance of her doing better in some of the exurban areas outside of Atlanta is a little bit iffy. And this, black belt area of Georgia may be a little bit concerning for her. So that's definitely going to be a problem for her coming up. And looking at Arizona again, or we can even go to New Mexico first. just to see what's happening there. But if we go to New Mexico right now, my average doesn't really have a lot of data because we really don't have that much data out of the race. But I mean, right now, Harris is only up by 0.7% in my average when you adjust for party. I'm projecting a D plus five electorate in the state of New Mexico, which before it was D plus seven. And when you reweigh all the numbers, I mean, it's the party IDs are abysmal in some of the polling. And so that's why you get such a huge, polling error right now in New Mexico. And there's a lot of young millennial Hispanic voters that are going to move to the right that I don't think the polling data is going to capture. You could realistically put this in the toss up category. Same thing for Virginia, because my average in Virginia has Trump and Harris basically tied when you adjust it for by party. Harris is at 45.2, Trump at 44.7. And if you look at Virginia, I mean, he's never gotten below 44% in the state ever. And he's polling above what he's gotten in 2020 in the state. And Harris is nowhere near the 54%, that Biden got last time. If you were to have done these numbers for 2020, Biden would be polling in the mid 50s right now in this same average. So this is really not looking good in terms of an average for Kamala Harris in Virginia. So those states are really even in question, but you really can't even put them in the blue column, to be honest. Arizona, I mean, if we look at this one, this is really fascinating because Arizona is a state that went for, Joe Biden last time, and it was a lot of white suburbanites moving in his direction. But you're going to see a lot of young Hispanic voters kind of just moving to the right, and it's really going to mess up Harris's chances in the state. I mean, in the past couple of, the past week or so, she's sort of caught up in the average. She's sort of caught up in the last couple of days in the average, but Trump is still leading fairly comfortably. I mean, he's still leading by over 5 points in Arizona, which may be a little bit more of a realistic result. Right now, I believe he's leading by 5.4% in Arizona right now. That's way down from his 8-point lead he had, earlier in these, that's a little bit lower than 8 points before. But I think that a 5-point win is a little bit more realistic in the state, to be honest with you. And then looking at Nevada, we actually see both candidates gained when the newest Fox News poll was implemented. So Trump is still up in the state by 6.1%. So Nevada is actually voting to the right of Arizona in the polling now, which is pretty fascinating. And when you incorporate all of that, Trump is literally up 268 electoral college votes. And looking at my Wisconsin average, the polling errors tend to be abysmal in Wisconsin. And funny enough, there was a new poll that was just put in not that long ago, probably August 24th. It's been a couple days. We haven't really had a lot of new data from any polls yet, but we see that Donald Trump is up in Wisconsin by over 5 percentage points. He's up here by 5.3%. And I mean, if that holds up in some of these states, which are very similar to what Rasmussen is showing in terms of the average shift, because in their polling, Rasmussen reports, we actually just did a collab with them the other day. Their polling in 2020 had Joe Biden up in all the swing states by a couple of points, actually. I don't know why they get labeled as a Republican pollster when their state polling is almost just as bad as some of the other people, but they try to gauge as best as they can there. And right now, Donald Trump is performing roughly 7 to 8 points better in all their polling in all of the swing states, even right now with Kamala Harris on the ticket, which kind of aligns with the margins that I have in some of these states. And looking at, for example, even Rich Barris and Robert Barnes, their election prediction had Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and Wisconsin all above 5-point victories for Donald Trump. So it's like, I mean, right now, I really don't think that Harris is going to win the electoral college right now, because just based on the average of polls that I've done, which reweigh all the numbers by party so we can get a more accurate sample as best as humanly possible to eliminate all polling bias, Trump is winning these states by over 5 points, necessary enough to win the electoral college outright by winning all these swing states by 5, which in retrospect isn't really a competitive race. And Nebraska second's a little iffy. I don't really know where I would put that one. But none of these other states are above 5-point leads. Like even Minnesota right now, if we were to go there, she is not leading by over 5. I mean, it's close. She's at 46.8, Trump's at 42.1. So it's almost, a lead of a decent amount. But Harris is not even leading by 5 points. I mean, maybe since it is the bluest one, I guess we could lean it in her column. Same thing with Maine because she is leading in Maine. But again, there's only one poll right now. I had to drop one out of the average, which when I had it in the average, Trump was actually up in Maine, by the way. He was up, and Robert Barnes has him winning Maine. And in the latest poll, Harris kind of shoots all the way up to a little bit less than a 2-point lead. So it's within margin of error, essentially. And even New Hampshire right now is looking pretty weird too, because New Hampshire in this average, which only has 3 polls because we don't have a lot of data right now, we clearly see that Trump is actually up in the state of New Hampshire, and Kennedy was getting like 12%. And funny enough, we actually had to cut the party ID lead for Donald Trump in New Hampshire by a pretty sizable amount, or at least for Republicans, because if this Republicans have the same registration lead or voter turnout as last time, Trump would be winning New Hampshire by 9. Maybe it's possible with Kennedy in the race, you could have seen a really weird shift in some of the polls. I don't know, but at least right now, this is what we're seeing in the Electoral College. I'm pretty sure that West and Stein kind of gained some points when one of the polls fell out of the average, but that's about it. I mean, pretty much. And Trump is up in that average in New Hampshire, which is why I've had New Hampshire kind of being a toss up state in some of the averages in Michigan and Pennsylvania right now. I mean, in Michigan, Trump is up, I think, by 1.6% in my average, give or take. We can go to the average right now and see where it is, but I do think he's up by a decent amount still. I mean, yeah, he's up by 1.4. And in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is currently up in that average by roughly 2.7%. So those, I mean, probably go to Trump right now, but for the sake of them not being over 5-point leads, we're not going to put him in. So effectively, Trump's floor right now is 278 electoral college votes, and Harris's floor right now, give or take, is 203. She's barely cracking 200 electoral votes as her floor. Even Maine is a little bit really kind of uncertain, to be honest. I'd say the only swing state that probably goes to Harris, comfortably, relatively compared to 2020 is probably Minnesota, because her polling lead is pretty good there right now, but we don't even have a lot of polls out of Minnesota either. And I mean, she has a big lead there, so she may in fact be doing pretty well in the state. She probably does end up winning it, and she's leading in my average by 4.6%. So I'd say maybe that's the one state she has in her column, but all the other states, the 59 electoral votes are free game for either or, but Trump's already cracking 270 in the electoral college. And so right now, I'd say Trump is really the favorite to win the election at this point in time. So if you guys did enjoy this analysis, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.